living on empty, living on fumes. Again, most of my stuff comes from food or cars or something, so that's where that one is. It's like a car-themed idea.
For decades, Alan Jackson's songs filled stadiums and topped the charts. Yet something about the country legend always felt different. At 67, he finally revealed a deeply personal truth, something fans had sensed but never fully understood. The man behind the music, the effortless performer, had carried this secret for years, carefully hidden from the spotlight. Why did it take so long for him to speak? And how does this change everything we thought we knew about Alan Jackson, his music, and the life he's lived behind the scenes? Join us as we uncover the truth that Alan Jackson finally revealed, even though his fans already saw it coming. The diagnosis that changed everything. When Alan Jackson released his debut studio album, Here in the Real World, in 1990, it didn't take long for the music industry to realize a major star had arrived. The album was a massive success. It produced 4 top 5 hits, including the title track, Wanted, Chasin' That Neon Rainbow, and his first #1 single, I'd Love You All Over Again. Eventually certified double platinum, the album established Alan Jackson not just as another new artist, but as one of the defining voices of country music. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, he continued to build on that success, releasing hit after hit, album after album, and headlining major tours across the United States. His consistency, traditional sound, and storytelling made him a fan favorite for decades. Yet, years later, something began to feel off. By the time he embarked on his 25th anniversary Keeping It Country Tour, fans who had followed him for years started to notice subtle changes. At certain shows, Alan appeared unsteady. The way he moved across the stage, the way he turned, even how he carried himself, didn't feel like the same effortless performer they were used to. At first, many brushed it off. Maybe it was fatigue, maybe just an off night. But then came the honky-tonk highway tour, and the concerns grew louder. Fans who attended multiple shows began pointing out the same thing. It looked like he was struggling with balance. Some even speculated that he might be drinking before performances because of how unstable he sometimes appeared. And it didn't stop there. As the years went on, even into his later performances and limited appearances in 2021, including shows at major venues like the Delta Center, those same concerns kept resurfacing. Then, in 2021, during an interview on The Today Show, Alan finally gave an answer, one that completely changed how fans saw everything. Alan revealed that for over 10 years, he had been living with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a degenerative nerve condition. It's a hereditary disease that affects the peripheral nerves, the ones responsible for controlling muscle movement. Over time, it can lead to muscle weakness, loss of coordination, and difficulty with balance. In Alan's case, it ran in his family. His father had it. His grandmother had it. Even his older sister was affected. Alan admitted he had avoided speaking about it publicly, especially in the early stages when it didn't visibly impact his performances. To him, there was no need to worry fans if he could still do his job. But as time went on, and as fans began noticing the changes, he felt it was important to be honest. He reassured everyone that the disease had not affected his voice, and that he planned to continue recording music and performing for as long as he could. And when fears spread that this condition might be life-threatening, Alan made something very clear. It doesn't necessarily take your life, but it can take your mobility. Since that revelation, Alan has continued to perform, even if at a more limited pace, holding onto the stage for as long as his body allows. But now, 5 years later, Alan has announced his fans' greatest fear. What did he reveal, and what does this new revelation change? The final farewell. After touring for over 30 years, playing across the country, and even in several parts of the world, Alan Jackson has now announced his farewell tour. And no, it's not just because he wants to spend more time at home with his grandchildren and family, but more because of his condition. His Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease was getting worse. It's honestly heartbreaking that Alan has to step away from his career like this. But at the same time, he has done very well for himself, ranking among the richest country singers and worth around $150 million, especially when one considers that at one point, it almost didn't happen. Alan was turned down by almost every record label executive in Nashville in his early days. There was even a time when he had to perform at a no-cover showcase at a then-popular Nashville spot called the Doghouse Corner Cafe, just hoping to be noticed. At some point, someone even told him to go back to Georgia. He kept struggling and struggling and struggling, trying to find not just recognition, but real support. And he kept going until finally, things started to change. Just when he was about to quit, he found the support he needed and ended up becoming one of the first artists signed to Clive Davis's Arista Records. This was a man who had been told his sound wasn't right for radio, that he was too country, but he didn't give up. He never did. And when that success finally came, it didn't just come quietly. It came with recognition. Over the years, Alan went on to win multiple major awards, including Grammy Awards, Country Music Association Awards, and Academy of Country Music Awards. He was repeatedly named Entertainer of the Year and Male Vocalist of the Year, and his songs dominated the charts for years. At one point, he had more than 50 singles on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, with over 30 of them reaching #1. In fact, his impact on country music became so undeniable that he was eventually inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a moment that cemented his place as one of the greatest to ever do it. But even after becoming popular and successful, it still wasn't easy. There was a time when his record label didn't want him to release a video he believed would boost his popularity. But Alan didn't stop pushing. He kept fighting for it until they finally allowed him to release Chattahoochee, a song, and especially a music video, that would go on to define his career and arguably define 90s country music. That was the kind of person Alan is. But even when Alan caught a break and didn't give up, a big part of that story comes down to one woman in his life. Who was she, and how exactly did she impact his career? Love at first flip. The way Alan Jackson's love story began is the kind that would probably land him in trouble in today's world. But back then, everything was whimsical. Alan met Denise while attending Noonan High School in their hometown of Noonan, Georgia. Apparently, Denise was out for ice cream after church when they met in 1976, and Alan was instantly smitten. But when he went to ask her out, he tried a pickup line of sorts. Alan flipped a penny down her shirt and then asked if he could retrieve it. It was absurd, and Denise didn't hesitate to reject him. One would think that would be the end of it, but Alan always got what he wanted, especially when what he wanted was a very beautiful girl. On his next attempt to win her over, he hid in the back seat of her car while she was parked, and when she got in to drive away from the local Dairy Queen, he popped up, scaring the daylight out of her and prompting her to scream and pull the car over. From that moment, they started talking, and that was the start of their relationship. At the time, Alan was 18 and Denise was 16. They dated for 3 years, and throughout their relationship, Denise encouraged Alan to push for his singing career. Alan's parents knew he sang in a barbershop quartet, but they had never actually heard him sing, at least not until his wedding to Denise in 1979, where he sang to her. That song at their wedding led him to join Dixie Steele as a lead singer after a member of the band spotted him performing. During the first 2 years of their marriage, Alan worked a variety of jobs, selling cars, building houses, and waiting tables, while Denise worked as a flight attendant. By the early 1980s, Denise had a chance encounter that would change everything. While commuting out of the Atlanta airport, she saw country singer Glenn Campbell in the boarding area. Even though she didn't normally approach people, she thought of it as possibly her last and only chance. She went over to him, and when she explained Alan's talent, Glenn gave her a card for the man who ran his publishing company in Nashville and advised Alan to put together a demo tape and visit him. That demo eventually led to a songwriting contract with Glenn's publishing company, giving Alan the break he needed. 6 years after staying in their hometown post-marriage, Alan and Denise were finally able to move to Nashville, where he tried to get into a record label. Even though that took him some years, a few years went by before he finally signed with Arista Records. Denise said that when she married him, she still felt like a teenager and believed their life would be one grand fairy tale. But the reality, especially over the years of marriage and career struggles, has been much more complicated. Many people don't know what happened behind the scenes in their 45 years together. So what could have really happened between the two of them over all those decades? The tipping point. 18 years after Alan and Denise got married, things reached a tipping point. Shortly after Christmas in 1997, Alan sat his wife down and told her it was over. They had just welcomed their youngest daughter, and conversations about feeling disconnected had been happening for some time. He left, leaving Denise alone with their 3 daughters. For Denise, the separation was difficult. She poured her energy into her spiritual journey, seeking clarity and strength while raising their children on her own. But 4 months later, Alan came back. He visited their children, asked Denise on a date, and slowly they began to reconcile. It was during this period of making amends that Denise realized the full reason behind Alan stepping away from the marriage. He had been unfaithful. Despite the betrayal, Denise chose to forgive him. It was a decision born from her faith and from the spiritual journey she had been investing in. She knew that, in the long run, forgiveness was the only way to gain real freedom and peace in her life. Years later, Denise wrote a book about their relationship 3 decades into their marriage, called It All About Him: Finding the Love of My Life. She admitted she had been nervous at first because she wanted to write honestly about Alan's infidelities. Alan, too, was initially nervous about the book, unsure how it would portray him. But he understood that this was Denise's way of sharing her story and processing the challenges they had faced together. When he finally read the book, even though he knew the story since he lived it, he was deeply moved to tears. It is remarkable and perhaps even rare that the two of them were able to bounce back and continue their marriage for another 27 years after that tipping point. And as Alan's health has begun to decline with his condition, he can be rest assured that he will be facing it with Denise, his lifelong partner, the woman who has stood by him through every challenge. But even before his sickness, their relationship had already been tested in more ways than most people realize. So what else impacted their lives together, and how did they get over it? For better or for worse? It was 2010, and Alan and Denise were in Florida celebrating their anniversary when Denise got a call from her doctor. Before the trip, she had met with her doctor to address some unusual bleeding, and after a colonoscopy, they found a small growth. At first, everyone believed it wouldn't be anything to worry about, but the lab results proved otherwise. When they learned it was squamous cell carcinoma, it was a shock for both of them, especially Denise, who had always eaten a healthy diet, exercised regularly, and never imagined she would hear the word cancer from a doctor. Even Alan admitted he was stunned. According to him, Denise had never been sick in her life, and this was completely unexpected. Immediately, they cut short their romantic getaway and caught the next flight home. Once they arrived back in Music City, Denise met with an oncologist to understand the cancer she was facing and to plan her treatment. Walking into the cancer wing of the hospital was terrifying, but Alan was right by her side the entire time. The only thing he could do in those moments was to reassure her, offer encouragement, and simply be present. It felt like he had given her the world just by standing there. Denise later said that his presence made her realize how much it matters to have someone walk with you through the most difficult challenges in life. Throughout the appointments, scans, and anxious days, Alan gave her the clarity, comfort, and encouragement she needed. For the first time, it truly felt like they were living out the words from their wedding vows, for better or worse. Despite their fear, Denise had a good prognosis and a strong faith that she would survive. She underwent 30 days of radiation and 2 4-day rounds of chemotherapy. And after 2 months of treatment, she was finally declared cancer-free. The experience left a lasting mark on Alan as well. Just a few weeks after Denise's diagnosis, he was inspired to write the song "When I Saw You Leaving," capturing the emotions he felt as a caregiver. That song appeared on his album 30 Miles West, which went on to debut at #1 on Billboard's country music charts. While Denise was lucky to overcome her illness, not everyone in their family was spared tragedy. Alan's mother, Ruth, passed away in 2017 at the age of 86. Her cause of death wasn't publicly disclosed, but she died at home. Mama Ruth had been a very important part of Alan's life, especially during his childhood. Speaking of his childhood, with how quirky and playful Alan is today, what kind of child was he growing up? The boy behind the man. Growing up, Alan wasn't a stubborn child or a troublemaker. According to his family, he was somewhere between mild-mannered and painfully shy, a boy who observed more than he spoke. His parents had married very young and struggled to make ends meet, so his grandparents helped them out by letting them live in a small tool shed. Over time, as the family grew with 5 children plus another who died very young, the Jacksons slowly added on to the house. Space was tight, and Alan often had to sleep in the hallway until one of his older sisters moved out. In that hallway, he likely shared his space with his pet squirrel monkey, Peanut, one of his early companions and a sign of his playful side. Alan Jackson's first job came at the age of 12, working in a shoe repair shop. But even as a boy barely taller than a peanut himself, Alan knew he wanted a career in country music. His first performance, meanwhile, was in his second-grade assembly program. Still, he waited until he had finished high school and gotten married before committing to it. That decision was influenced by Mama Ruth, who tried to talk him out of singing. She wanted him to have a real job. But his father and sister encouraged him, telling him to go for it while he was still young and free of responsibility. Interestingly, Alan Jackson is such a perfect name for a country singer, but his mother's full maiden name is Ruth Music Johnson. Imagine if he had chosen Alan Music as his stage name, it would have been even more unforgettable. Still, while music is what made him famous, it isn't actually Alan's greatest passion. Alan has long loved restoring antique cars, a hobby that rivals even his devotion to music. Fishing is another passion. Fans know he loves it, but few know that he once caught a blue marlin weighing over 650 pounds off the coast of the Bahamas. Instead of keeping it as a trophy, Alan and his crew released it back into the ocean. He fishes not for accolades, but to appreciate the beauty of nature. When he isn't fishing or restoring cars, he enjoys driving cars, taking them out on the back roads of Tennessee, turning off phones, radios, and the noise of the world, allowing his mind to be completely quiet. Alan's skill behind the wheel even paid off when he had to jump a monster truck over 6 cars in his Who's Cheatin' Who video. A stunt that required both precision and courage. Now, with his current health challenges, one can only hope that Alan will still be able to enjoy the things he loves most. Driving down back roads, restoring antique cars, fishing in the open waters, and experiencing the simple joys that have defined him outside of the spotlight. Now that the truth is out, will Alan's final performances carry the same spark that captivated millions? And without the thrill of touring, what will the rest of Alan Jackson's story look like? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.